Do not think ill of your old master, but it was 4 lances only, I fear.
As you say,
There are scenes that entertain you, and then there are scenes that quietly teach you how power actually works. This is one of those scenes. In just a few minutes, without speeches, without threats, without spectacle, you're shown a version of leadership most stories never even attempt. No shouting, no dominance displays, no reminders of rank, just calm authority, doing its job. When Baelor Breakspear first appears, you're not told he's important. You feel it. And by the time the scene ends, you understand why many believed he would have been one of the greatest kings Westeros never had. What makes this moment special isn't Baelor's name or his lineage. It's the way he moves through space, the way he speaks to people who have nothing to offer him, the way he handles uncertainty, tension, even disrespect, without ever needing to assert himself. This isn't authority enforced from above. It's authority that settles naturally, because everyone in the room recognizes it. This scene quietly dismantles a common myth about power, that respect must be taken, demanded, or feared into existence. Baelor proves the opposite. He listens before reacting. He lowers the temperature instead of raising his voice. He treats minor lords and low-born strangers with the same steady composure he would offer a king. And because of that consistency, the room aligns around him, without resistance. In a world obsessed with titles, bloodlines, and brute force, this 5-minute exchange shows something far rarer. Leadership rooted in self-control, moral clarity, and quiet confidence. Not the kind that needs to be announced, the kind that's immediately understood. The first thing to notice about Baelor Breakspear is that nothing about his entrance is dramatic. There's no announcement, no theatrical pause reminding you who he is. He simply arrives. But the way he arrives tells you everything. When he dismounts from his horse, he doesn't remain elevated, physically or symbolically. He steps down to meet the Lord of Ashford at eye level. This isn't accidental. Leaders who rely on status stay above others whenever they can. Leaders who rely on confidence don't need that distance. Baelor greets a minor lord, someone with no strategic importance, with warmth and genuine courtesy, a smile, a touch on the arm, the kind of respect most powerful men reserve only for equals. And in that brief exchange, Baelor signals something fundamental. Rank does not determine dignity. That moment sets the tone for everything that follows.
Grey Line, he's Lord of Casterly Rock now.
So he is, and enters the lists upon the morrow.
Because leadership, in its truest form, isn't proven when things go smoothly. It's revealed when tension enters the room, and tension arrives quickly. Dunk is caught where he shouldn't be. The situation is ambiguous. He could be harmless, or he could be a threat. And the response to that uncertainty immediately splits the room in two. Maker reacts first. His instinct is confrontation.
What the fuck is going on?
Questions turn sharp. Space is invaded. Authority is asserted through pressure. This is a familiar style of power, the kind that moves fast, escalates quickly, and assumes control through force of presence. Baelor does the opposite. He doesn't rush forward. He doesn't interrupt. He watches. He listens. He allows the situation to unfold long enough to understand it. This is restraint, but not passivity. It's controlled attention. Baelor understands that reacting without understanding isn't strength. It's insecurity, wearing armor. By listening first, he identifies what this actually is. Not a spy, not a saboteur, but a low-born man, trying to be seen. The first decisive move Baelor makes isn't toward Dunk at all. It's toward his brother.
We are the intruders here, brother.
When Maker pushes for escalation, Baelor calmly reframes the entire situation with a single sentence. They are guests here. That one line quietly strips Maker of moral authority. Without humiliating him, Baelor doesn't challenge his brother's rank. He doesn't contradict him publicly. He simply corrects the premise. Power, when used wisely, doesn't argue loudly. It adjusts the frame, so everyone sees reality more clearly. Then Baylor turns to Dunk, and this is where his leadership becomes unmistakable. He doesn't interrogate. He doesn't accuse. He addresses him as, "Sir."
Come closer, sir.
That word alone shifts the dynamic. Baylor is offering dignity before it's been earned, not because he's naive, but because he understands something most rulers don't. How you treat people in moments of uncertainty reveals who you are, far more than how you treat them once they've been categorized. Baylor isn't letting the situation define him. He doesn't know if Dunk is dangerous or harmless, but he knows who he is. And that self-knowledge anchors every decision he makes. True confidence doesn't change, depending on who stands in front of you. It stays consistent. That consistency is what people recognize as authority. When Baylor invites Dunk closer, the gesture carries enormous weight. He doesn't demand explanations. He doesn't force a performance. He signals curiosity rather than suspicion. This is leadership that doesn't feel threatened by proximity. Humble, but firmly in control. Gracious, but never submissive. In a room full of armed men and noble blood, Baylor becomes the gravitational center, without ever raising his voice. As the conversation deepens, and Dunk mentions Sir Arlen of Pennytree.
You see, they say they know not Sir Arlen of Pennytree, but
Baylor's demeanor subtly changes, not in tone, but in focus. His face tells you he remembers, and more importantly, that he's already assembling the pieces. Who this man might be, why he's here, what he wants. But kindness doesn't turn into blind trust. Baylor evaluates, without demeaning. He listens, without surrendering judgment. Respect, in his hands, is not a weakness. It's a tool. Crucially, Baylor still doesn't seize control outright. He allows Lord Ashford's steward to handle the formal decision. Another quiet display of discipline. Baylor can override the process, but he doesn't. He understands that leadership isn't about inserting yourself everywhere. It's about knowing when restraint preserves legitimacy. Authority that respects boundaries strengthens itself. Everything shifts the moment Dunk speaks directly to Baylor. Now the responsibility is unavoidable, and what follows isn't dominance through rank, but dominance through knowledge. Baylor recalls details about Sir Arlen that go beyond reputation. Not heroic exaggerations, not surface-level praise, precise observations, measured assessments. The room understands instantly what's happening.
How can you possibly remember some fucking hedge knight who chanced to unhorse Daemon Lannister 16 years ago?
I make it a practice to learn all I can of my foes.
Baylor knows more, and because he knows more, the conversation belongs to him. Information is power, but only when wielded with restraint. Baylor doesn't use his knowledge to humiliate Dunk. He uses it to reorient the room. He establishes himself as the most informed voice, without declaring himself the most important one. This is narrative control, at its most refined.
Lord Baratheon held a hasty salute to celebrate the birth of grandson. The lots made Sir Arlen my opponent in the first tilt.
Once Baylor speaks, no one questions the frame anymore, not because they're afraid, but because it's clear he sees further. At this point, the balance has shifted. Dunk came seeking approval. Now, he's being assessed. But even the assessment is generous. Baylor doesn't demand proof. In a way that corners him, he offers a path, a test that preserves dignity. If Dunk is genuine, the answer will come naturally. If he's not, the truth will surface, without spectacle.
Do not think ill of your old master, but it was 4 lances only, I fear.
as you say, Your Grace, it was 4. I do apologize.
This is leadership that understands something essential. Humiliation creates enemies. Clarity creates order. The story then widens beyond the room. Because Baylor's behavior doesn't exist in a vacuum. The dragons are gone. The myth that once protected the Targaryen name has faded. Power can no longer rely on fear made flesh. And after the Blackfire Rebellion, even bloodlines have become points of suspicion. Baylor, with his Dornish heritage, lives under constant scrutiny. Every gesture matters. Every interaction feeds a larger narrative about legitimacy. So when Baylor speaks about knowing his foes, it isn't arrogance. It's survival. In a world where spectacle no longer sustains authority, perception becomes everything. Baylor understands this. Leadership now depends on coherence. Between action and character, between word and behavior. He plays the board, not with aggression, but with awareness. Then comes the moment. That could have shattered everything.
The lots made Sir Arlen my opponent in the first tilt. We broke 4 lances before I finally unhorsed him.
It was 7.
Dunk contradicts him. Publicly, not maliciously, but clearly. In that instant, Baylor's authority is challenged. In front of lords and knights, many rulers would respond with anger, others with punishment, some with dismissal. Baylor does none of these. He doesn't argue facts. He reframes meaning. He acknowledges that stories grow in the telling, and positions himself as the standard by which those stories are measured.
I do apologise. The old man, Sir Erlen, he used to say that I was thick as a castle wall and slow as an oryx.
No harm was done, Sir. Rise.
Instead of shrinking under contradiction, he expands beyond it. He protects the memory of a dead knight. He spares Dunk embarrassment. He preserves harmony, without surrendering authority. This is grace under pressure, not the absence of strength, but its highest expression. Baylor doesn't need to win the exchange. He needs to stabilize the room. And he does. When compared to other rulers, the difference becomes stark. Fear commands obedience. Force demands compliance. But Baylor inspires alignment. People don't follow him because they must. They follow because it makes sense to. He listens. He thinks. He responds precisely. And in doing so, he demonstrates a form of leadership, far rarer than conquest. Leadership that elevates everyone it touches. Baylor's greatness isn't found in conquest or crown, but in restraint. In a world where power so often announces itself through fear and force, he proves that the strongest authority is the kind that doesn't need to shout. He listens. He understands. He protects dignity, even when challenged. And that is what true nobility looks like. If this scene changed how you think about leadership, let me know in the comments. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel if you want more deep character breakdowns like this. And I'll see you in the next one.